Hello and welcome back to the Nasty Metal Bridge channel here at YouTube, and welcome to, of course, the Friday album review. Now, today I will be, of course, reviewing the 7th full-length album from, of course, Finland's pioneer classic heavy metal band Oz. The album is titled Forced Commandments and was released through, of course, Massacre Records back on May 22nd of this year. So, at this point, given that how much of a cult following this band has, do I have to really go in much of a backstory, since I would think that most of the people that are subscribed to me at this point should know who Oz are. I mean, I think at least somebody at least has a copy of at least Fire in the Brain or Third Warning, or even their 2011 album Burning Leather, at least in their collection. Or at least maybe a couple of some of their albums. I mean, besides the classics such as Fire in the Brain, Third Warning, and of course Burning Leather, and of course the classic 12-inch single Turn the Cross Upside Down, which actually kind of caused J.C. Blade to kind of stop writing satanic songs after they had received their check, which apparently was at 666 SCK or whatever, I think, or at least of what that it is, at least in Finland, or at least for the cash and so on. Still, though, at least besides that, they've got, maybe some of you have at least a copy of their debut 1982 album, sometimes either referred as Heavy Metal Heroes or just the Oz, or at times just self-titled. It's probably best to say. Or even some of you might have at least a copy of Decibel Storm. Maybe even one of the more obscure albums, such as Roll the Dice, which was actually their final record for a long time until 2011's Burning Leather. But at least at this point, some of you must have at least a copy of that. So without further ado, let's definitely just kind of, I guess, in many ways lead into, of course, Forced Commandments, which is the second album, at least, of the most newest lineup of this band. And yes, I probably should also briefly touch on this, that Burning Leather was pretty much, in many ways, I think pretty much the final album, I think, from members such as J.C. Blade and original vocalist Ape D. Martini, who of course after that left, and pretty much it's just original drummer Mark Ruffneck and a lot of newer guys. And of course the singer on for him these days is a guy named Vince Quivula. That probably, who knows, I might have butchered his name, but that's the newest singer, who of course debuted on 2017's Transition State, which I never got to check out. But this is my first, I think, checking out at least an album with this newest lineup. So without further ado, let's just get into, of course, Forced Commandments, the 7th studio album, and the second for this newest lineup of course, Oz. Alright, so before I even get into any of my thoughts on this album, let's definitely run down a lot of the track listing. Right now, I am only going to be running down at least the original 8 songs here, at least that will be present on the vinyl release. And I'm not going to run through any of the bonus tracks yet. Eventually, I will touch on those 3 when I really get into any of the talks about the bonus tracks that would be found on the CD copies of this album. So here's your track listing for at least for the original album here, which is just 8 songs here. So we go from Going Down, Prison of Time, Switchblade Alley, Revival, The Ritual, Spiders, Long and Lonely Road, and Liar. And of course, it all clocks in at 37 minutes and 59 seconds, so basically close to 38 minutes. Again, which is probably perfect for an album like this. And for my again, for at least my taste of this newest lineup of Oz, this is pretty much, it's a fine, solid album from these guys. It's definitely, just good old traditional metal. Really, nothing too different from, I guess, in many ways, from what Saxon have been releasing this year, or at least in the 2010s. It's not very different from what or any other traditional heavy metal band or traditional metal band that have been releasing in basically the last 2 decades or so. But it's a fine heavy metal record for what it is. So as far as highlight songs for me, it definitely goes from, of course, to the opening track, Going Down, which is a solid opener that kicks things off nicely. It's it's rockin' and it's energetic, and again, it's what you're supposed to do, at least when you open up a album of this kind of caliber, to definitely give the listener at least a little something, to kind of get to sink their teeth into before you really start pushing things a little further within the album, to kind of really just to kind of rig the listener into the record. Other highlights again is Revival, which is a fast, melodic, foot to the gas pedal metal track in the vein of Saxon, along with another fast track on here that's great, and that's actually the very last song on here, which is Liar, which is a furious fret burner that comes close to sounding like classic Oz, and that's definitely, in my opinion, it's definitely a great track. But other highlights here is also The Ritual and Spider, which are both fine Saxon-esque rockers, but Spider, on the other hand, is definitely very gothic sounding. I wouldn't say anywhere to any of the gothic songs off of, for example, Fire in the Brain or even Third Warning, but it pushes towards that. Maybe a little bit more similar to maybe Decibel Storm or Roll the Dice, but it definitely does have that kind of feel. I don't know if anywhere touches any of the good stuff also off of Burning Leather, but again, both The Ritual and Spider are fine tracks. As far as other songs on here, I do dig a little bit of the very very galloping Maiden-esque feel of like Prison of Time. I do dig a little bit of the melodic feel of Switchblade Alley. Long and Lonely Road is the sole ballad on here, and it's a fine ballad for the most part. So really, these 8 songs are all good songs to begin with. Now, it's time to touch on at least the bonus tracks. Again, if you were to purchase the CD, you would get 3 bonus tracks. And with these 3 tracks, it actually pushes the album from being 37 minutes and 59 seconds to, of course, 54 minutes and 56 seconds. So these 3 bonus tracks are Diving Into the Darkness, Breakout, and Kingdom of War. And Diving Into the Darkness is the longest of these bonus tracks, which is why, in many ways, the length of the album does get lengthened a little bit further. I mean, this song clocks in at 7 minutes and 36 seconds. And as far as my opinions on these 3 bonus tracks, well, it's what they are. They are okay. And that's it. And that could just come down to, of course, the recording quality and the production, which is a lot different and very different from, of course, the 8 original songs on the album. It really varies in quality here, and they're good sounding for what they are. Good, they're fine demo tracks, or I guess modern day studio demos. But compared to the other songs, which are more well-produced compared to these, so I'll just go on further here. It's, again, they really don't add much to the album's experience to even warrant any interesting discussion. So again, I'll just leave things there at that. So there you go. There is Force Commandments from Oz, and my rating, it's a 8.05 out of 10. Again, I think that this is a solid Oz album. No, in many ways, this is not going to at least come to any of at least the brilliance or the greatness of at least their classic albums within their discography. Again, like Fire in the Brain. Even I also consider Third Warning to be at least a classic album. Turn the Cross Upside Down is a classic 12-inch single because the track itself is fucking classic. I also consider their modern, most recent release, Burning Leather, to be some of the best albums they have probably had put out. Even if Burning Leather was pretty much mostly slightly more re-recorded material, the original songs that are also presented there are some of the best material they probably had recorded since at least their 80s material, especially Fire on the Brain and Third Warning, and of course Turn the Cross Upside Down. These are, as I would say, Burning Leather was the best they had did so far. This second album, however, at least the third of the modern albums since Burning Leather. Again, since it's the second of the more newest lineup of this band, I haven't really heard much of transition state, so I can't really comment too much. I don't want to sound too biased, but so far this could be the best, at least, of the two. I'm very curious on where this progresses and where this lineup heads into. I'm really curious on if they really can, what is going to come out of this new lineup, because I think there's definitely some good potential here for another really good classic record. And I think this is good, and it's close, but still, in my honest opinion, I don't think this is anywhere comes close to at least Fire on the Brain, but it's still a solid enough record from Oz. So, since this album has been out since May 22nd, and given I know that there are some fans of this band, if you've heard this album, let me know what you thought. But if you haven't yet heard this album and are aware of their classic records, or have heard their classic records and still haven't yet checked this album out, you should probably just give it for at least a curious listen, just to see if it will do anything for you, but don't expect at least Fire on the Brain Part 2. Okay, don't expect that. But if you also dug Burning Leather, I don't know, you might dig some of this album for sure. So I'll just leave everything at that. So with that, I hope you all enjoyed. This is Every Thrasher, Sam out, and I'll see you all later. Take care, everyone.